Om Samartha Sadguru Sri Sai Nadhaya Namaha. Sai Baba of Shirdi and his teachings. Chapter 2. The Real Master. Sai Baba said that unless we can live like him, we cannot take it that our discipleship has borne fruit. What if we study minutely how he lived and try to cultivate the habit of living like that? Would do any amount of serving him indeed? Is it necessary to repeatedly study his life and teaching and to loving remember him all the time? Let us see. Sai Baba lived all alone for several decades before any devotees worth the name ever came and sat with him. But if we try to do so, we immediately remember that man is a social animal, quite a truth indeed. The one thing of which we are terribly afraid is loneliness. The moment we try to do so in a short while, we will find ourselves busying ourselves with the people around us under different pretexts. Or at least our mind is much more crowded with memories of things and persons than even a crowded city. We may adopt some spiritual discipline to keep ourselves busy with, but soon it degenerates into dull mechanical routine. We grow more irritable and less acclimatized to the presence of others. Shortly, our spirituality will start consisting of harassing others, telling them how to conduct themselves, and thereby showing the green signal for more and more people to flock to us in search of spiritual teachings from us, which indeed proves to be the gloomy cloud of ignorance that envelops us. If we persist, a veritable battle starts in us, and our minds becomes more and more cunning and astute in the art of being cunning and squeamish. All the supposed negative tendencies will get overcharged, and we could at best put up a pretense of sanity. We have to invent ways of getting our daily bread and to receive the necessary succor in times of illness and financial needs. No one has ever succeeded in trying to sacrifice worldly association as a matter of conscious choice. That is why Sai Baba is very careful to point out that when he saw his master, all recollections of his home and hunger vanished of their own accord. It is the law of human nature that an overwhelming love and something more alone can withdraw our heart from other lesser loves. When we contact a real guru, our sadhana or spiritual disciple starts on quite spontaneously and unself consciously. Then there will be no time when we do not yearn to be alone without guru. People who burst into the arena of Gurudom without genuine discipleship will end up by having a wild outgrowth of commercial establishments trading in the name of religion. It is good to remember the eternal truth that Christ spoke out. No man can serve two masters, God and mammon. No genuine master or the other god is in this mesh. Let us look at the lives of Sai Baba, Akal Kotswami, Manikya Prabhu, Sri Narasimha Saraswati, and Sripada Sri Vallabha. If one tradition is not enough, let us look at the life of Hazrat Tajuddin Baba or Duniwala Dada of Khandwa. The Cavalier Gurus or the estate Gurus, in spite of themselves, may serve some purpose in the life of the society, initially by drawing the attention of the society to them spiritually and ultimately by showing them by example what they ought to shun at all costs. But for themselves, they are worse than a common man who drudges his life out in honest labor for his daily bread and does nothing more than offering an incense stick to the picture of his guru. But at least the latter is honest and humble, and he can hope for the better. This is the next most important truth we can pick up from Sai Baba's life. As the most obtrusive of the gurus, he did not mill out millions upon millions of words or so-called teaching, which everyone hears, no one remembers or bothers to practice. Ask and thou shalt be given is their principle. They only speak out as much as the devotee can absorb and endeavor to bring into practice. They know that too much of intellectual knowledge only serves the purpose of self-deception and intellectual arrogance, and finally ends up in finding ways of rationalizing one's own failures. That is why Hindu religion law has earmarked the founding of institutions only to conscientious men of the world and the householder. A renunciate is strictly forbidden from any such. Unless he has learned to live honestly as a humble householder, and unless he has seen senseless and futility of all craving for fame and wealth, he is not entitled to step into the portals of spiritual wisdom. It is lack of such training in the school of life that makes a few foolhardy enough to venture into the chair of guru. The Sanskrit word guru ironically has another meaning, a burden or weight, and that is what they prove to be to their followers and ultimately to the society. It should not be difficult to distinguish such gurus from the genuine ones. Despite the teeming of thousands of devotees that flocked to him, Sai Baba never conceived of forming an organization or founding an institution or organizing regular service activities on a large scale. He never wanted his devotees to stand apart from his stream of social life. Instead, he only wanted them to learn to lead their normal lives with a greater awareness. Many of his teachings, therefore, pertain to the wrong attitudes that propped up in our day-to-day life. Do not call anyone as your enemy. Who is whose enemy? All are one. He pointed the way of overcoming all petty jealousies. If someone prospers, we need not feel jealous of him. What has he taken of what belongs to us? Not realizing this, we go on giving vent to our feelings by speaking ill of him to others, but we do not gain anything thereby, nor does the other man lose anything of his own. If anything, we are the losers. One day, a few of his devotees assembled in one of the apartments of Shirdi, and one of them was speaking very ill of someone else behind his back. Baba at once sent word to him to see him that evening near the Lendi Bagh. Precisely when they met, a pig was gorging on night soil. Sai Baba pointed it out to the man and spoke to the effect. Look, it is taking the filth to itself and giving its own cleanliness to the soil. Anyone who speaks ill of another does the same. He takes the filth into his own mind and washes out the evil karma of the other man. If you do so, even your visits to Shirdi will be of no avail. Sai Baba never wasted his time or the devotees in talk about lofty themes in spiritual wisdom. He merely effected necessary minor corrections in man's day-to-day life. We see that the Christ's teaching too are such. Complex spiritual jargon is always a designed cover-up of total ignorance and vanity. He never exhorted his disciples systematically to cultivate love, peace, truth, and such other virtues. For the greatest psychologist he is, he knows that such preaching is counterproductive. In struggling to cultivate peace, the common man learns to maintain external facade of peace, and either his blood pressure goes up or he lets out his steam in the intimate corners of his domestic life, and no one can love by choosing to do so. The more he tries, the more to do natural springs of love narrowed down. It is easy to say that no one can fall in love deliberately. All such teachings becomes alive only when the master can hold out to his devotees his own unconditional love without demanding any obedience to his teaching nor claiming itself to be such. Even in his ways and gestures, Sai Baba never demonstrated his love. He just addressed his devotees sometimes with the familiar words of kindship like Bhavu means brother, Mama means uncle, or Kaka, grandsire. More generally, he addressed people just by their names. In the name of disciple, he did not assume the pontifical attitude of a guru and never treated anyone of his as his disciple. Should be spontaneous, being prompted by the immense love for the guru, quite unconditioned by the hopes of either spiritual or material gain. For only such is true love. The value of love is absolute. It is a value by itself and does not point to anything beyond itself. His love lived itself always in his watchfulness of the spiritual and material interests of his devotees, and he was never negligent of even the minute details of their daily life, for the seemingly unimportant things of life are the most vital elements in spiritual life. His omniscient eye was ever watchful all what every one of his devotees did or thought. Promptly, he used to suggest the study of any work of spiritual value like the Gnaneshwari, the Eknath Bhagavata, or some other such, which was most appropriate to his mental state. The sum and substance of his teaching was that we should always remember that he is present in all the creatures around us and treat them accordingly. All his miracles have this common theme and were never intended to merely impress the devotees with awe and wonder. If anyone leisurely slept on till late in the morning for no valid reason, or if he wasted away his time in meaningless chatter of futile things, he would not allow the devotee to step into the mosque, but would stretch out his handful of udi, signifying that he should keep off. If anyone entertained negative thoughts of feeling towards anyone else, he used to grow wild and heap abuse on him so as to impress upon his heart the gravity and magnitude of his folly. For as the Christ said, it is not that which we take in that pollutes us, it is that which comes out of us what that does so. If a little rubbish falls into a fresh water well, it is enough if it is removed. But if the very springs of water are brackish, nothing can be done about it. So too, when the heart is unclean and the feelings, thoughts, words, and deeds which emanate from there are unholy, nothing can purify such a man. Fortunately, unlike the well, man has the opportunity of changing his way of thinking and thereby purifying his own heart, and that is the business of life. It is for the same reason that he never allowed anyone to treat any kind of food as unholy. If it is used as a food and nothing more, all food is holy. It is the daily bread which the Lord in His mercy has granted to all living creatures. If one still tries to cater to his own palate, then any kind of food is equally harmful to his self-discipline. It will make him forget the very object of man's life and ultimately would enslave him. He does not eat it, rather, it eats him up. As in all other things of life, he set an example to all by his characteristic way of eating. He mixed all the items indiscriminately and ate just enough to quench his hunger. However, he did not confuse the standards of living that befit a reckless and a householder. While he never drove away cats and dogs that fairly ate from his earthen pot, he was particular that all his householder devotees should scrupulously take sufficient quantity of food and leave it outside for all other creatures. For if every householder presumes to ape him, it is pride and nothing else. Baba's sense of utter equality with all living creatures spontaneously springs from his perfect identity with all of them, and only such can honestly do so. It is for this reason that all the ancient dharmasastras strictly forbid any one from eating what is tasted by animals. It is enough if we remember that food is a right which is granted to all the creatures by the Creator, and whoever denies it to any of his creatures would be appropriating to himself what does not legitimately belong to him alone. Just as Allah Malik is his central teaching pertaining to the spiritual aspect of our life, work, utter Lord's name, study holy books is his principal teaching that pertains to the conduct of our daily life. The first one keeps the body active and is the prime condition to deserve one's food. Every creature in nature does it utmost and thereby vindicates its existence when the body is kept active in useful work. The mind would calm down and it will be easier to preoccupy it with what is valuable. Scared, steady, and remembering the Lord. In fact, it would then be much easier for anyone to realize the attitude Allah Malik for no slave is expected to keep idle. Besides, in work, man can easily overcome his chronic self consciousness. The whole philosophy of Karma Yoga is summed up by Baba in that one phrase: sacred study and reflection will help us in correcting our attitude to work. Instead of looking upon it as a drudgery and an unavoidable evil, we can learn to look upon it as a means of perfecting our abilities and keep ourselves in tune with the whole of nature, for nothing in nature is idle or still. Our breath, heartbeats, the diurnal motion, and the annual circuit around the sun, everything goes on as it should. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, never can anyone keep inactive even for a second. If even keeping still in action, not doing one's own proper action is only negative action, in that it is a failure to do one's duty. The two other phrases above all preclude us of vain chattering and gossip, for nothing spoils a man as much as gossip does. All conceivable negative thoughts and emotions pile up in one's heart. It is a criminal waste of precious moments which never return. As one goes on remembering the Lord by uttering His name, the right attitude of Allah Malik gets impressed more and more deeply on one's heart. The whole of one's physical activity then becomes a practice of obedience to divine order. The study of holy texts strengthens our right understanding and attitude to life and to God. It restores right sense of values. Again, Baba himself has set an example in all those things. He dug up a piece of wasteland, planted seeds of flowering plants, and watered them every day by carrying pitchers of water from the well in Lendibag. Sometimes in the afternoons, he was found mending his torn kafni at the mosque. He never spoke anything that was not useful to his devotees. Even he had to deal with hundreds of devotees every day. His scrupulous attitude to every one of them is summed up in the saying, I have to count to the Lord for every pie that comes to my hand. The pie does signify the soul which comes to him. All the time he was absorbed in the spontaneous contemplation of the Supreme Spirit. Every one of his slightest gesture was prompted only by the will of the Supreme. Every idle word that is uttered by us marks a falling off from this objective, and more than that, it drags down everyone around us. The study of holy texts by ourselves is not self-sufficient, for everyone understands them only to the limits of his innate maturity of understanding, and many of us cannot boast of much maturity. It is for this reason that he summed up the essential philosophy of life as expounded in all the scriptures of the world in his one saying, I am in you and you are in me. Go on contemplating this truth and eventually you will experience it. How true this is evident even from slight reflection. All our physical bodies are essentially made of the same material substance. The heartbeats, the motions, and the mental abilities are more or less the same. Whatever which seems to make each of us distinct is only the detail of form and the objects of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Whatever else we are, besides this, is a self which all great masters have said is one. At the emotional level, this comprehends the basic law of all mortality and ethics. Do unto others what you would have done unto. And logically follows, love the neighbor by thyself. But again, these statements derive their fulfillment in practice only from the fact that all the creatures are ultimately his creatures, and all life is a school where we are expected to learn the right attitude to all of them and to God. The more fully we can comprehend the fatherhood of God, the more fully can we comprehend the brotherhood of creatures. All attempts to love deliberately without carrying much to impress the fact of the fatherhood of God are therefore bound to be a pose and a show, and subjectively the best course to go on forcing oneself to love. Such a one will go on feeling ever more and more that fewer and fewer creatures are really worthy of being loved. He finds distrusting negativity everywhere, which in fact is a projection of his own inner set. The life of Sai Baba demonstrates another very important aspect of his teaching. He lived all through as a poor begging fakir, and even out of the little bread he got, he ate very little. His needs were very few. He had only one set of clothes for his body and had no possessions beyond that. Thus, what he took either from nature or from humanity is a very little and is next to nothing when compared with what he gave out. In those days, his daily personal expenditure was never more than a quarter of a rupee or even less, whereas he gave away about 500 rupees in charity. Besides the money, he gave away all the clothes and delicious dishes that were offered by the devotees. The service he rendered to humanity in terms of spiritual succor and guidance is invaluable. To sum up, his basic philosophy of interaction with the world and nature in his saying, everyone keeps saying, give, give more, and my master keeps telling me to give and give away. Indeed, that is the basic principle of almost every other creature in nature. The earth receives just one seed, but gives us lots of fruits and crops. Even then, he asked for dakshina from his devotees. He says that for every rupee he receives, he has to benefit them 10 or even 100 fold. While for most of us, the case is quite the reverse of it. That is why all religious had to lay down a minimum limit to what we should give. However, this giving should not be limited to clothes and money. The essential thing is to give out love and to give with love. Such a giving does not weigh or count how much it gives or how much it receives. It is a question of trying to cater to the needs of others. The needs may be spiritual protection, guidance, and alleviation of suffering. The point of it all is that anyone who is genuinely interested in spiritual advancement has to venture to taste all of God's mysterious protection, more so without even the worldly employment and stable income, which bind the man down to undesirable pastimes and cravings. One of the closest of his devotees is Mahalsapati. He was a goldsmith by trade. Sai Baba told him to give up his trade and to live on begging. Dasganu originally worked in the police department. He always craved for promotion and he was addicted to cheap amusements. Originally, he was gifted with a devotion to great saints. He could sing their glories to the masses, but with his employment threatened to stamp out this gift in his heart and increase him more and more in material cravings. So Sai Baba insisted that he give up his profession. The man evaded for quite some time. Once he even demanded of Baba how he had to sustain himself after giving up the job. Baba used to say, "You go on singing kirtanas and I will take care of your maintenance." Dasganu was not sure about it and stuck to his guns. Ultimately, the will of the master prevailed. A series of unforeseen developments took place and he was left with no alternative but to quit. Soon, Dasganu received unforeseen help from different quarters and he lived a happy, content life, devoting all his energies for the spread of spiritual message. Indeed, it was owing to his kirtanas that hundreds and thousands of peoples were drawn to Baba. The master was particular than his the master was particular that his devotees should not only go on singing about God's grace and message, but he should taste it for himself. It is easy to discern that slowly and steadily he was drawing those who were worthy to his own mode of living. There is one reason why we weaned Dasganu away from his fondness for cheap street plays called tamashas. Not only did they divert his attention from the only legitimate object of life, but they also plant seeds of gross worldliness in a man's heart. This, however, does not mean that all art is undesirable. The master only meant that all the artistic talent of man should be put to the proper use, that is, to nurture one's own devotional nature. Music and dance, when properly practiced and used, link man's body and mind with the music of the spheres and cosmic harmony. They can influence one's emotional nature. Either way, even in this, the master set an example himself. In the early decades of his arrival at Shirdi, he often went to the meeting place of a wandering Muslim fakirs, the Takia, and there in their holy company with the trinkets around his ankles, he danced ecstatically, singing songs of Kabir and other great saints, but he never danced or sang anywhere else. The instruction is clear. The most important theme of his life is, however, of his phenomenal devotion to his Guru. On a few occasions, he vividly recounted how his master sat deeply engrossed in meditation and totally oblivious of the world around him. Sai Baba diligently served him for 12 long years in the hope that he could with a mantra from him by way of spiritual initiation. In the radiant presence of his Guru's silent love, he forgot all about his home, parents, food, and sleep. After attending to the needs of his master, he used to spend all his time sitting in front of his Guru with all his vital energy centered in his eyes through loving attention. He fixed gaze on the Guru's form. All through the day, all through the day, he could think of nothing else than his Guru. If anything else occurred to him rarely, it was the only the hope of receiving a mantra from him, with which he could perfect himself. The Guru never addressed him or inquired of his welfare or even about his wishes, nor did he promise anything. Sai Baba does not mention any kind of spiritual experiences such as mystic visions, prophecy, healing, etc. It was only a bond of undescribable love. The greatest miracle is that without the need of any miracle, his heart was held on by the overwhelming bond of love and the immeasurable peace that brushed aside all thoughts of anything else or anything other. Other than the Guru and the burning longing to receive his instruction. At the end of 12 years, even, the master did not teach him any mantra. He got the disciple's head cleanly shaven and then demanded dakshina of 2 paisa. The 2 paisa he wanted was not the minced metallic coins, but the two supreme virtues of nishta or unwavering awareness, usually called concentration on the Guru, and saburi or cheerful, limitless patience. Baba offered the same. Then the Guru put his hand on the disciple's head by way of blessing and said, "Wherever you are, here or beyond the oceans, I am ever with you, protecting you with my spiritual gaze, attention, or watchfulness." This short statement is all that he ever spoke as a reward of 12 long years of arduous service. The importance of this episode for the devotee of Sai Baba is underlined by Sai Baba himself. One day, a devotee had a dream vision of Baba giving him appropriate advice on his sadhana. On learning of this, Dabolkar felt depressed as he did not get any such teaching in spite of prolonged spiritual practice. Even as the thought flashed in his mind, Baba at once told him to get up and visit the house of Shyama for a chat with him and get a dakshina of 15 rupees. When Dabholkar conveyed Sai Baba's order to Shyama, the, la- the latter could not at first understand what he, an ignorant man, was expected to say to the learned visitor. He silently prayed to the master and spoke on whatever occurred to him, and precisely the account of Sai Baba's service of his master flashed in his mind. Later, when both the devotees together went to the mosque, Baba blessed Dabholkar and said, "If you clearly impress this one episode on your heart and reflect on it, it is enough to attain blessedness." Om Sri Samartha Sadguru Sri Sainadhaya Namaha.